I don't try to build the same guitar. Like, I don't want my guitars to all sound the same, but I
Mm-hmm.
want my guitars to all have the same quality
Mm-hmm.
and to make sure that the sound quality is always at the high level
Mm-hmm.
and not that my guitars all sound the same.
Mm-hmm.
I too think that individual players need individual guitars.
Welcome to Life with Strings Attached. I'm your host, Jamie Gale. Today I'm joined by Max Spohn, a luthier whose path into guitar making has been unusually intentional. While many makers discover the craft almost by accident, Max set out early with a clear plan. A childhood surrounded by music and art, formal training in Germany's famous Markneukirchen, and a pivotal apprenticeship with Raymond Kraut, drawing from the Somogyi lineage. His work reflects that depth. Modern acoustic guitar shaped by design thinking, informed by early influences like Kandinsky and Klee, and rooted in the emotional connection players form with their instruments. In our conversation, we trace Max's journey from those early artistic foundations to finding his own visual language, learning to trust his instincts, and navigating the world of guitar shows where his work first gained real visibility. We explore how intention, experimentation, and personal expression come together in the guitars he builds today. I thoroughly enjoyed my conversation with Max Spohn, and I hope that you do as much as I did. Max, great to
Hi,
see you.
Jamie.
Welcome to Life with Strings Attached. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, great. How are things in Germany?
Yeah, quite good. Quite good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How's it for
Good.
you?
Well, I'm in Italy.
Well, great.
Yeah, yeah. No, but things are good here. Things are very good actually. So it's life is good, business is good, family's good, all of those things. I'm checking off all the boxes, I feel like.
Great.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So wonderful. So Max, you have a decisive path. When I think about you, I think that you went to a very specific kind of training, and a lot of the guitar makers that I deal with sort of kind of ended up as guitar makers. But you
Yeah.
went to a university for guitar making very specifically, and then went and pursued an apprenticeship very specifically. You know, it's very methodical what you
Yeah.
did. You didn't end up a guitar maker. You planned to be a guitar maker, and here you are.
Right.
And
You're
so
right.
I think it would be interesting for our listeners to understand how that sort of came to be. Would you mind just sort of taking us through sort of where you're from and sort of a little bit about your family, how you grew up, and how you ended up being a guitar maker?
Sure. Well, to be honest, I don't know when the guitar came into my life because it just happened very naturally and very early on.
Hmm.
I remember that I always wanted to play guitar, and first my mother didn't let me because I was just too young, too small to play a guitar.
Hmm.
But my parents got me a guitar very early on, and I can remember sitting my dad listening to the radio, and I was just strumming on a small guitar. And yeah, so my dad, he's an art teacher at high school,
Hmm.
and yeah, so art and design and guitars were all around when I was young.
Hmm.
Yeah, and when I was about 14 years old, I think I knew that I wanted to become either an architect or an industrial designer.
Hmm.
And when I graduated from high school, I knew that I want to become an industrial designer, and I started to prepare for the studies, and which means you have to draw
Hmm.
um, basically many, yeah, design and draw a lot of things. to apply for a university,
Mm-hmm.
but I just could not focus on drawing and designing. And instead, I started to work on my electric guitars.
Mm-hmm.
And it was actually my mom's idea that I should think about becoming a guitar maker instead of an industrial designer if it annoys me that much that I just don't want to, yeah, don't want to draw. And uh, yeah, so that's
Mm-hmm.
how it started for me.
So, so let's back that up for a second. If you didn't enjoy drawing and couldn't focus on design, what possessed you to want to be an architect or an industrial designer in the first place? You,
I,
what was your conception of that? So when I was
well,
very young, for most of my life, I said I wanted to be an archaeologist when I was young. But I wanted to be an archaeologist because of Indiana Jones, and that's not a very realistic idea of what an
no,
archaeologist is. When I learned that an archaeologist is a scientist who uses a
yeah,
dustpan and dirt most of the time, I went, "Oh, that's decidedly less exciting." Do they even wear fedoras? Some cool hat. Do I get a whip? Nothing. So what were you thinking about industrial design and architecture at that relatively young age?
well, I knew that it was about drawing and designing things, and I even did some internships during my time in high school at both an architecture bureau and also with an industrial designer.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved to be there. And I had a lot of fun drawing and designing things. But I think I noticed that I just don't want to design and draw all the time and
Mm-hmm.
rather do something with my hands. So I played a lot of guitar instead of sitting at my desk drawing, and it drove my mother crazy. But yeah, and then she came up with the idea of me becoming a guitar maker, and at first it didn't feel right at all because I was so focused on becoming an industrial designer that I first really questioned if I want to change something on my plan. But I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I was 18 years old, right out of high school, and yeah, my mom said, why not trying and do an internship with a guitar maker? And then that's what I did. And within the first week, basically, it was clear that that's what I want to do.
Mm-hmm. And who was that guitar maker?
It was Thomas Ochs. He's a
Mm-hmm.
classical guitar maker in Bamberg, Germany.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. And were you playing classical guitar at all, or that was just the guitar
No,
maker that you could connect with? That was just like the
well,
option you had.
yeah, I sent
Mm-hmm.
out like 15 emails to different guitar makers, and he was the
Mm-hmm.
only one getting back to me. And he said, well, come over to my shop. And he wanted to get to know me. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I went there. We met for one day, and then I think like 3 weeks later, I started my internship with him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was first just for one week, and at the end of the week, he asked me if I want to stay longer, and I stayed for 5 months,
Mm-hmm.
building my first acoustic guitar with him. But weird enough, I did not play a lot of acoustic guitar. I
Mm-hmm.
mainly played electric guitar, but it was always clear that I wanted to build acoustic guitars.
Hmm. Interesting.
So yeah,
And,
during my time when I usually had to like I had to draw for my design studies, but which I didn't do.
mm-hmm.
And I researched about guitar makers and came across John Montiglione
Mm-hmm.
and was really fascinating by the work.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
And
and then
And what was it about John's work that you found so fascinating? Was it the archtops, the mandolins, just everything
Yeah,
about
the
it? What was
archtops.
the
The
archtops?
archtops, and I really don't know what it was that really spoke to me, but
Mm-hmm.
um, like the intricate work he does, yeah, it really fascinated me.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he's a very strong aesthetic. What were you looking at his sort of aesthetic sensibilities also? You know, his
Yes,
it's yeah, okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. And so, to back up a second, when you worked with that classical guitar maker for 5 months, did you build the traditional Spanish method, like an integral neck joint on a Solera, or was it a more modern approach to the classical guitar, or what
Well,
did you do with them?
so Thomas builds modern classical guitars. He builds a
Okay.
lot like double top guitars and many guitars with catch-up bracing. Yeah, but I didn't want to build any classical guitars because I was not interested in classical guitars at all. So we agreed that I can build a Martin style single O guitar, but he has never built a steel string guitar before. So I was in his shop and had plans of a Martin single O guitar
Yeah.
and started building that guitar after a plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Interesting. And so, to get too far into the weeds here, what sort of neck joint did you end up using? Like a dovetail, a
I
Martin dovetail,
yeah, I
or
did a Martin dovetail
yeah, okay,
cut by hand and yeah.
yeah, 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 okay. And did your teacher do dovetails before that?
Sorry?
And did your teacher do dovetails before that?
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
So
okay.
he doesn't do them on his own guitars. He builds in the Spanish traditional style, but he knew how to make them. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Yeah, great. That's yeah. The pathway is always interesting how people arrive here. So okay, so you built an OM from a plan in
Yeah,
non
single O.
a single O, sorry, a single
Yeah.
O
Yeah.
from a plan in a nonconformist classical guitar maker's workshop.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, and you were attracted to the work of John Monteleone.
I was, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay,
At
I
least at
can
the beginning. And
at
well,
least
I
okay.
still am, but I I don't know how, I don't know when, but I came across the work of Raymond Kraut and Irvin Somogyi. Well, actually, it was during my time with Thomas because he knew about Irvin Somogyi's work and actually had visited Irvin in his shop once. And he said, like, if you want to build steel string guitars, you have to check out this guy. So that's how I came up, like got to know about Irvin Somogyi's work and then about Raymond Kraut's work, which really spoke to me visually.
So Ray's work spoke to you visually.
Yes.
That's interesting because I don't know the exact timeline here because I interviewed Ray a few months ago, and Ray tells me that it was his visit with you that opened him to some of the inspirations for his current designs. And so, what was it about Ray's work that attracted you at that time specifically? Because his work has evolved quite a bit since that period, and I'm not totally familiar with his timeline exactly. And so, can you describe what it is you
Yeah.
saw in Ray's work that was so appealing to you?
So it was in 2014 when I did my internship, and Ray was still doing round sound holes, but with the thin lines and segments around the sound hole. And when I first saw his work, like I couldn't imagine how you could inlay such a thin line into a piece of wood. So I was fascinated from a craftsmanship standpoint, but also I have never seen a guitar before that in such a way combines art and a guitar.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I knew about like artists like Vasily Kandinsky and Paul Klee and kind of saw the connection between their work and Ray's inlay work.
Mm-hmm.
And it opened up something for me that you don't have to build Martin OM style guitars
Mm-hmm.
necessarily, but you can just do whatever you want to basically.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's interesting that you saw a connection between with Kandinsky and Klee, and Ray was pretty much unaware of them, I think, at the time. But it's the human experience. We can derive similar ideas from different experiences in the end, because truth is universal, and
Yeah.
so that's fascinating. Okay, so you saw Ray's work. Then what happened?
Well, and then I started at university, which was my plan from, well, Thomas didn't want to have an apprentice at that time, so
Mm-hmm.
it was just not an option to do an apprenticeship with him.
Mm-hmm.
And he thought that I'm good enough to go to university straight away. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what I did. I applied for university. Well, so there is one university in Germany where you can actually study guitar making. You need to know how to build a guitar before you start there,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just to focus more on how to build a guitar and the acoustics behind guitar making and all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I applied there, and a few months later, I started at the university, and
Mm-hmm.
I
Which
built.
university is that?
It's the West Saxony University in,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's in Markneukirchen, which is the
Mm-hmm.
hometown of Mr. Martin himself. So
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
birthplace, yeah, a very famous town for instrument making in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
And I started studying there, and in the first semester, everyone had to build a classical guitar, which I didn't want to do before, but they had to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I built one classical guitar there, and then in the second semester, I started designing my own guitars.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Were there other students that were designing their own guitars at that point in time? Was that a common thing to do, or something more
Yeah.
unusual? Mm-hmm.
Well, it was quite common,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, let's not talk about it.
Okay. I'm more wondering about
Um,
how much that's encouraged by the educators, by the faculty, and the program.
well,
Does the program
it is.
encourage that, or is it just not really mentioned? Is it part of your studies to create something on your own, or is it to recreate existing models and then your own self comes in after the education's over? What's their perspective on the matter?
Well, basically, you can do anything you want. The only thing
Mm-hmm.
is you have to build one instrument each semester. But what you want to build is completely up to you. And it does not have to be a guitar. So you can also build mandolins, lutes, ukuleles,
Mm-hmm.
everything that is a plucked instrument, basically.
Yep. Okay.
And I would say in the first few semesters, students try to do something different than they have done before because most of the other students they did an apprenticeship before starting to study there. So they
Mm-hmm.
were basically 3 years already in guitar making.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so many weird things happen in the first few semesters, I would say. So people build guitars that are not proportioned very well. I mean, myself included. I don't think my first few guitars were very well designed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then you have students there that only want to build in the Spanish tradition, and they only build classical guitars that look like a classical Spanish guitar,
Right.
which of course is totally fine. And then you have other people there, like myself, that from the beginning want to design something their own.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cedar Creek Custom Case Shop is your premier fretted instrument custom case maker, and we invite you to create a musical instrument case unlike any other, one that's unique to you. Every Cedar Creek custom case is hand-built by highly skilled craftspeople using only select woods, Providence Forge hardware, and premium instrument-friendly materials. At Cedar Creek Custom Case Shop, we are dedicated to helping you design the case of your dreams. Find out more at cedarcreekcases.com. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But I
Yeah.
think the program lacks in teaching students about how to properly design things.
Okay. This is
Yeah.
this is well, as you know, I've taught in many guitar making schools around the world, and no two are the same. There's no sort of standard of guitar making school anywhere that I'm aware of,
Yeah.
and they vary quite a bit. And there's this question of, is the guitar making program meant to create an independent artisan capable of running their own business, making their own designs, creating the craft, so on and so forth, all the things that you need to be successful in launching a brand of your own designs in the world. But the whole sort of concept of a university is that there are different faculties within it, and that you could stack those factors. You could take an accounting class, you could take a business
Yeah.
course, you could take a design class, you could take an industrial design program, along with your guitar making. And
So
it's been my
so
experience that the guitar makers that take an industrial design course along with guitar making have a huge advantage in the
yeah.
rationale as to how to think, how to take their own photographs, how to present their product, all those things, and that it's helpful, but it can be an adjacent course, not necessarily the same course.
Yeah, well, it is quite a big university, and the musical instrument part in Markneukirchen is only one of the faculties.
Mm-hmm.
So they also have a big program for automotive uh, engineering,
Mm-hmm.
and then like the our direct partners basically were fashion designers and yeah, other industrial designers with a focus on woodworking.
Mm-hmm.
But to be honest, I would have wished to get a better education in design there. And I was
Mm-hmm.
fortunate to have some education before I went to university because the high school I went to was very art focused.
Mm-hmm.
And I had some art and especially also design classes in high school.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's interesting where these two things meet, because I've also done a little bit of work with the Harvard Graduate School of Design, which are architects,
Yeah,
in the fabrication lab, where they have to take the theoretical and actually make something physical. And the people who work in the fabrication lab say that it's not uncommon for these advanced architecture students. I mean, there's graduate students, right? To come
yeah,
into the fabrication lab and have created something that simply will never hold together with those materials. It just implodes, right?
yeah,
But yet they're advanced in their studies already. But there's that physical realm and the theoretical realm, and how those two things mix. And so I think that it anybody who spends some real time considering both the theoretical and the physical and rounding out their education and bridging that gap between the two has a substantial advantage.
Well, it can, but also I think you're more free in your mind if you don't necessarily have in mind that it has to work.
Well, I don't think those things are mutually exclusive. I think that you can be a creative and be okay with it not working, to experiment and
Yeah,
find out, okay, well, lesson learned. What am I going to do
yeah,
next time to make this work? That happens, you
yeah.
know. And so okay, so you're in the name of the town that shall not be mentioned by my mouth. No, I love it. Markneukirchen. I'm still not getting it
Markneukirchen.
right.
Yeah,
I'm getting there. Kirchen. These are
pretty
hard
close.
sounds for English people to say.
Yeah,
The town beside Klingenthal.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and so you're there. You're doing your studies. You're experimenting early on, which is okay within the
Yeah,
school.
yeah.
How long are you there? How long is the program?
So the program is 4 years,
Mm-hmm.
um, but only the first 2.5 years you have to be in Markneukirchen and get lectures and stuff like that. And
Mm-hmm.
after that, so one semester is a practical semester that you have to work with a guitar maker and
Mm-hmm.
or with another instrument maker,
Mm-hmm.
or I think you can even go to like acoustic labs and work there.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last year you have to write papers and build instruments.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
and
so I was
mm-hmm.
there for 2.5 years in Markneukirchen and have all the lectures done by that.
Mm-hmm.
And then for my practical semester, I went to the US and worked with Raymond Kraut.
Okay, so that was a part of your official university education. That was your
Yeah,
practicum.
yeah,
Okay, I didn't know that. I thought it came afterwards. Okay,
yeah, no.
and
So,
and how
yeah,
did that
sorry.
happen? Because I don't think Ray has a history of accepting apprentices at this point, does he? Has he had many apprentices? I think of you and
No,
Howard and.
well, he had one guy, but yeah, which didn't work out that well. But
Mm-hmm.
when, so I got aware of a talk that Ray wanted to give in the UK in a guitar shop in Brighton, and I signed up for going to that talk, and
Mm-hmm.
it was me and another student. We hopped on a plane and flew to England,
Mm-hmm.
went to Brighton for one day to hear Ray talk about his guitars, but it was also the first time that I really had the possibility to play modern steel string guitars. So before
Mm-hmm.
that, I had no idea about what a what a really like responsive guitar is. Irvin
Mm-hmm.
Somogyi says sounds and more importantly feels.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we went to London and I to Brighton and I asked Ray if I can apprentice with him for half a year and he's he said yeah, well we can try to do it. And afterwards, when I went there, he told me yeah, he never thought that I really was going to show up. And yeah, between the day in England and my start in the US with him, we met once again in Berlin for the Holy Grail Guitar Show.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, after that, it was clear that I was going to the US. Well, at least for me, it was clear to go there.
Wonderful. What year was that?
Um, at the Holy Grail Guitar Show,
Yeah.
I think it must have been 2016. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Almost 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then, yeah, it was 2017 when I was in Eugene working with Ray.
Okay. Great. This is and then so you did your apprenticeship with Ray.
Yeah.
What's the next important thing that happened for your career?
Well, I mean, my time with Ray was
Yeah.
amazing. I've learned so much there in a relatively short time, much more than I have learned during the rest of my studies. And I was there for only 3 months, otherwise it wouldn't have worked out. And yeah, I was there 3 months. We built a lot of guitars together. Was a crazy time. Ray was basically packing up stuff because he was about to move down to Tucson right after when I was leaving. And but still, we were building a lot of guitars, and he taught me how he builds his guitars. And besides working for Ray, I was able to work to build another guitar for myself in like after I worked for him and on the weekends, and quite an intense 3 months, but it paid off. And yeah, I learned a lot of things with working with Ray about how to improve my own guitars, how to voice my guitars much better, how to make the inlay work that I was fascinating of from the beginning. And yeah, and also Ray pushed myself to designing my own guitars and finding my own visual language for my guitars. So when I came back to Germany, I I was looking for a shop and then started there with Spohn guitars.
Yeah. When did we meet? 2017, 18, somewhere around this time?
I think
Do you know?
2018. Yeah.
At the
And
Mannheim Guitar
yeah,
Summit.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things that I think are really interesting here for our audience to understand is that Ray Kraut told me that when you arrived at his workshop, you could already build a Kraut guitar. Your skills were already there. I know you learned a lot, but he didn't have to teach you how to how to use the tools and do and make the joints and all those things. I'm presuming is what this is, and that
Yeah.
I presume your lessons that you say you learned so much about were more about perhaps the physics of the guitar and how to really get the sensitivity and fullness out of the guitar, which is so well established amongst all of the lineage
Yeah.
from Somogyi down. Yeah.
And during my time in Markneukirchen, I tried many different bracing patterns. So I went away from X bracing pretty fast, tried Falcate bracing on a few guitars, then tried some weird hybrid between X bracing and Falcate bracing, which didn't work at all. So the guitar basically uh, was falling apart. The bridge lifted all the time, and but it was a good experience to get to know the boundaries. But I was not satisfied really with the sound of my guitars, nor was I with the aesthetics of my guitars. And also, I basically knew how to build a guitar, but I don't think I was at the point at all to build a crowd guitar or like a high-end acoustic guitar.
Well, by the time I met you, it was another very well respected guitar maker who asked me, said, "Have you seen Max Spohn's guitars?" I said, "Who's Max Spohn?" I said, "I don't know what you're talking about." And I had just arrived. I often would do the Guitar Summit show as like a fly-in for the weekend. I'm coming from Canada, and I would be there for 3-4 days. I'd get a car at the Frankfurt airport, drive into Mannheim, be there for 2 nights, get back in the car, and fly back home. And so I had just come there, and it was Uli Teufel, and I'd said hello to Uli, and we're old friends, and he, within a short period of time of me saying hello, and once we, how's the family, all that kind of normal stuff,
Yeah.
he asked me if I'd seen your guitars. I said no, and then he just walked me across the hall to your guitars, and maybe he introduced me, or maybe he just walked me to the guitars. I don't remember exactly if he introduced me or not.
Neither
But
do I.
the point is, it was like, you need to see this guy's guitars. And I cannot think of many instances where Uli has told me I have to go see someone's guitars. So he doesn't hand out free compliments. He's a nice guy, but
Yeah,
he
he
just
is.
wouldn't talk. He just wouldn't talk about it unless he was
Well,
unless he was really genuinely impressed and thought that we should connect.
I haven't seen Uli in quite a while, um,
Hmm.
but I met him this year in Mannheim and actually said thank you to him for introducing us.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah, I feel like we're old friends now. I feel like we've known each other for a long time now. I guess it's
yeah,
been 7, 8 years, whatever it's been, and we've seen each other quite a bit and done some work together over the time. And so, yeah, but yeah, to get the attention of an Uli Teufel, and then for him to recommend to me, because he's very aware of the standards that we keep and what we do in our work. That's some high praise, Max.
yeah. Thank you.
And so, I wasn't really conscious of exactly how early in the process that was, but now I'm realizing that was really early in the process.
Those were the two first real Spoon guitars, I would say. Yeah,
Yeah.
the first ones with rosettes that weren't copies of Ray Kraut's
Mm-hmm.
rosettes. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I remember playing those guitars. Obviously, I was impressed by them, or else there wouldn't have been a second conversation about the guitars. That's the way it goes. Um, yeah. What do you remember about that encounter? What was it like for you to be at that show? So here you were. Was that your first guitar show?
it was my first guitar show. Yeah.
Okay.
At
So.
least like my first real guitar show, opposed to some few very small festivals in Germany that no one knows about. I've done
Mhm.
before, but yeah, that was my real first guitar show I made. And
Okay.
yeah, it was insane. I I mean, meeting you there was, yeah, I think it brought my career forward much more than anything else that could have happened there. So, and yeah. I was
Did,
fortunate to already know many of the electric guitar makers there from
mhm.
my time playing a lot of electric guitar.
Mhm.
So my dad plays bass, but he's also very interested in guitars. And
Mhm.
actually, he thought about his after graduating from high school, he thought about becoming a guitar maker
Mhm.
and already was in touch with Sergey de Jong and
Mhm.
could have started an apprenticeship with Siri, but then he met my mother and decided he didn't want to move to Canada.
Mhm.
But we always went to guitar shows. So I've been to the Frankfurt Musikmesse a few times when I was 14, 15, 16 years old
Mhm.
and met people there like Nick Huber and Jens Ritter.
Mhm.
So I already knew a few of the luthiers while I was at my first guitar show, but it was not something I was completely unaware of. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. And Nick and Jens would have been in that room also,
Yeah.
the same room that you were in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And so, okay, great. So here you are, you've done your first guitar show, you've gotten some proper attention. It's off to the races at that point in time. Things are
Start.
happening.
Yeah.
Is that? Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so that's
Yeah.
great. Okay, so we got the backstory. Wonderful. It's nice to hear the clarity from me. There's a number of guitar makers that I know that we go back years later, like you and I just did, and I didn't realize that specific moment was the first time they ever showed that kind of guitar.
Yeah.
That had I met them 6 months earlier, I might have walked past their guitars,
Yeah.
right? And it
Well,
sounds to
I
me like
think six
that's
months earlier there were no guitars.
yeah, yeah, sure, yeah. But I'm thinking back to an interview I did with Dion James not so long ago, and I did Dion's sort of biography, and I hadn't realized that the first guitar that he made that we would recognize as a Dion guitar was the first guitar that I saw of his at a show. So, like,
Wow.
had I seen a previous guitar, I might not have stopped. And it wasn't the third or 10th time he made a guitar in that way that I interacted. It was at that first guitar that we interacted.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing the same thing from you. It was at that first guitar of that way that we interacted. And that's the way it is sometimes. So, when guitar makers contact me, and which happens pretty much daily at this point in my career, and ask me to be a part of what we're doing. And if I tell them that I don't see a fit in it, I always encourage them. I said, just to stay in touch, as things develop. There are guitar makers that I work with today who the first time we met, it wasn't a fit. But,
Yeah.
Years later, it was. And so legitimately stay in touch. And I can think of guitar makers that I was watching for years sometimes and saying, they're close.
Yeah.
They're just not there yet. And then all of a sudden I go to a show and there it is. They've arrived, Now
Yeah.
that's something that you can take around the world. And yeah, but you did it quite early on, and that's the first time we met with it. So
And
great.
yeah, so I was fortunate that I could have just tried all the weird stuff at university where no one cared about. So I
Mm-hmm.
did not have to make money with the guitars I built during my studies. It was just the purpose was to learn things, to try out new things, and if it works, fine. If it doesn't, also fine. I've learned something.
Mm-hmm.
This space is normally reserved for brands who make stories like this possible, like the Dario and the Cedar Creek Custom Case Shop. If your company belongs in this conversation, let's talk. We partner with brands who value craft, culture, and the quiet power of a well-placed idea.
And I think many guitar makers now start a business from a product that is not developed yet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And basically, they have to start out and make money with what they build. I was very fortunate that I just did not have to do it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's this was a topic that I covered earlier today in a different interview. So this is the second interview today,
Okay.
and the previous one was with Ola Strandberg, and Ola and I were talking about this sort of idea of cutting off a project, like saying this one's worth pursuing, this one's not worth pursuing, and then defining it, putting parameters on what you're going to do, and how important that is. And that if I do a brand development with a guitar maker, very commonly, I see one model that's really worth pursuing, and the rest need to go because they're just adding noise. They're just confusing the picture of this one thing that you really could probably sell all around the world. But these other five, they're not. And they're
Yeah.
just watering down your message or confusing it. And so
not enough people put the time into really well considering it as a product because they're in love with the process of making it. And they're not
Yeah.
enough serious about the process of selling it and the process of creating something that's worth putting on the stage. Just because you made it doesn't mean you have to tell everyone you made it. You know, it's you when you have something really worth talking about, then it's time to say it. But otherwise, those other ones can live somewhere somewhere else, you know. And knowing how to present that is something, you know. Uli Teufel told me that in the early days, he continued making road cases for someone else, but he never talked about it. And he still made some other guitars, but he never ever showed them.
Yeah.
There was what he did to feed himself. Pardon me. What he did to feed himself, and then there was the what he presented to the world. And that what you present to the world is really, really important. Really important.
But also, I think it's okay to have a journey. Like, I don't think you have to start from being at the top.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to have a product that evolves. I mean, my guitar still evolves, and
Yes.
I think it's something good.
Yeah, I agree. But there's a concept, if you're creating a business or a product, it's something you probably learn in industrial design school, and we call it a minimum viable product. And so it's okay to learn. It's okay to evolve. We should evolve. The next one you make should be the best one you've made so far, and then the next one and the next one. However, there's still a minimum viable product.
Yeah.
Right? And not enough time goes into really properly considering and being critical enough to say, you know, am I ready to present this to the world? The flip side of that is someone who's always getting ready to get ready to get ready. You know, they wash their hands in order to take a shower. You know, it's just get in the shower, you know? And you have to actually get out there and do something. And that's another mark of an entrepreneur is the willingness to get out there and fail. But I think it's this balance between, all right, this is not perfect, but it is good enough to release. And that consciousness of this is the minimum viable product and I'm going to improve it from here. But now I need some feedback. I'm going to get out there. I'm going to interact with some people, and I'm going to adjust as we go. But this is good enough to get out there with. And I see a lot of things. And honestly, particularly at the... I'll go out and say it. The Guitar Summit, I think, is one of the best guitar shows in the world. But I do not think they're critical enough as to who they sell the tables to. I think that they have some of the best guitar makers in the world there, and they sell out. But if you sell out, then you can afford to decide who you're going to sell to and who you're not going to sell to a little bit. And that some people need to work a little harder to get into that valuable space. And I think, from what I can see, they're taking the money of whoever signs up first.
Yeah.
And it lowers the quality of the show because there's a lot of sort of craftwork kind of guitar at that show. That's more craftwork guitar at that show than I think there should be for the international reputation it's developing. They need to be more scrutinizing.
Yeah. Well, I really love the space I had there within the EGB area, but there is
Mm-hmm.
no EGB area anymore.
Mm.
So luthiers that only build a handful of guitars a year, they can only present one or two guitars.
Mm-hmm.
But with all the bigger companies there, no one's going to see their work because they're just in between the areas of the other people. So I think the position I was in within the EGB spot, it was possible for me to be seen by people,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not sure if that's still the case there.
I mean, I still think it's possible. I think that you can succeed at making the noise and drawing attention.
Yeah.
You know, I know there's guitar makers who have good shows there who are independents who have one of those tables between spaces that you're talking about.
I still try and attend the show, and I missed it this year because of my other travel obligations. But it's a worthy show to go to, and I've certainly found a number of guitar makers there. I found you there, and I'm happy I did.
Yeah.
And others. And so, it's, you still have to put yourself out there. You still have to, the most successful guitar makers that I know in the world are the ones who did the most work, frankly. I see Nick Huber all around the world because Nick's out there working. There's a reason he's one of the most successful guitar makers in Germany. And it isn't because he sat back and waited for someone to notice. It's because he got out there and worked and worked and worked and worked and still shows up every time. And that's part of his success. And so, but anyways, back to Max Spohn and his guitars. And so, here we are many years later, and you were one of the youngest guitar makers to have a very good, viable product. What I call a unique world-class instrument. I have to remind myself that you're not so young anymore. Now your age isn't so surprising, but it was at one point. That was 8 years ago. And you've been accepted by some of the greatest resellers in the world. You've been invited to some of the best shows in the world. You've been part of the BGS on tour, the NAMM shows, Boutique Guitar Showcase. You've been sold, invited in by Eddie's Guitars, and you have a shop in Japan, and so on and so forth. You're recognized by, you're in the big leagues. At this point in time, and you make a wonderful guitar. You continue to experiment. You are committed to trying other woods rather than the easiest to sell, most traditional woods. And I like that. You're one of those guys who did one of the most obvious things, and everyone else goes, "Shit, how do we miss that?" And I love that about that. And that was you simply doing a matching headstock to a spruce top, a spruce peghead veneer.
Yeah.
And it's so obvious, and everyone looks at it and goes, "Look at that. Jesus, why didn't we think of that?"
Yeah, I still can't believe that I was the first one, so it just can't be possible.
I'm sure someone did it, but you made it your identity.
Yeah, right.
And so that's a different thing. And so, well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, on that. And so, what's next for you? What's current Max Spohn up to? Mm-hmm.
Well, to be honest, I just enjoy building guitars right now, and there is nothing on my bench right now that really pushes the boundaries that much. I mean, I always do little tweaks here and there, but they're getting smaller. I always work with different materials.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not only for the back and sides. I mean, I work with different materials for the back and sides all the time, as you know, but also with materials for my inlay work. So I'm experimenting a little bit with leaves at the moment,
Mm-hmm.
and so the tweaks are getting smaller, but it's totally fine.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it's one of the most fascinating things when building guitars is getting consistency and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, consistency in sound mainly. So yeah, that's what
Mm-hmm.
I'm really working on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is an interesting topic because a lot of people are obsessed with this getting the known result out of the guitar. And there's a number of people right now who are working with technologies to help with these things, teaching classes on it, all sorts of things. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not like I respect it. I get why one would want to do it. But
it's kind of like dialing it in to be perfect for who? Because I'm experienced enough that I have probably a relatively uniquely broad set of experiences on the guitar. I'm not the only one, but I've traveled with acoustic guitars for years all around North America. I've been in all the top acoustic guitar shops, and I've had to compare guitars, shoot it out. And even when we dial in a guitar really beautifully, it's still a person who has to play it. And and those people vary so much that you don't get the same result when that different player engages in that guitar. Now, that doesn't mean that we need... I'm not advocating for chaos or to become apathetic about doesn't really matter. That's not what I mean at all. But I mean, there's a certain amount of variance where if I took 3 guitars from one particular guitar maker and there were variances in those guitars within a range, they still sounded like that kind of guitar, but there was one was a little tighter, one was a little more open. I would talk with the player as to what they're doing, and I'd say, oh, you're playing in a band and you're strumming a lot. Okay, this one that's a little tighter is going to cut through a lot more. This one is really big and open. It has more sort of a bass response on it, but that's not going to cut through in a mix. That's good for a solo artist if you're singing over and playing with this guitar and you need the dynamic range. And so it's like, but if I were to dial in and make every guitar perfectly consistent all the time, you smell what I'm stepping in? You see?
Yeah. Well, don't get me wrong. I don't try to build the same guitar. Like, I don't want my guitars to all sound the same, but I want my guitars to all have the same quality. And to make sure that the sound quality is always at the high level, and not that my guitars all sound the same. I too think that individual players need individual guitars, and that's what I'm working for. So it starts with the body shape. Different people need different body shapes, and like the guitars need different body shapes, and then I select my tops different for different people, and the back and side wood, and then I can still do major changes when voicing the guitar. Yeah, but I need to know what the person is looking for to make the changes according to what they need.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of the reasons you would come to a luthier, so they can shape that with you, and a luthier who truly has achieved mastery, can voice it in that direction. Absolutely. I guess I'm theoretically working after this idea of perfection, and that the issue with perfection is that there's an element of perfection that we can't control, and that's perception. And that's there's a perceiver, right? And the person who's engaged in that instrument in the first place. It's years ago. I remember getting in back when I had a retail store. I had an amplifier that came in. The amplifiers don't exist anymore. They were called Cornford. They were out of the UK. They were fantastic. That's the first time I ever heard of Guthrie Govans, what he was playing back then. Okay. Paul Cornford made these amps, and I had all of the teachers who worked in my music school. I had a guitar store with a very substantial school. There's about 35 teachers and 600 students a week coming through that school. And so we had a lot of guitar teachers. And so I had this lineup of teachers who were going to play this amplifier, and they all used the same guitar. Actually, it was a Nakuba guitar. And after like 5 teachers, one guy sat down and he started playing. And I was like, the amp doesn't sound as good. What's going on? And so I walked over, I looked at the EQ settings. Okay. The guitar. I reached over, I grabbed the volume and the tone to figure out where they were. I was like, okay, all right, that should be fine.
I was like, what is happening? And then the next guy played it, and it sounded great again. I realized, oh my God, it was the player. Like it just sounded thin all of a sudden. Is the way he attacked the guitar, his finger mass. He was rather petite, but there's been lots of really petite guitar players who had awesome tone, and
Yeah.
as a matter of fact, there's a lot of petite guitar players. Eddie Van Halen, Randy Rhoads, they're all tiny. And anyways, it was the first time I really realized that this person's like body mass and their finger mass and the way they were made up was an element of the tone of this guitar and amplifier that I couldn't control. I went, whoa. That was
Yeah.
a mind-blowing moment for me.
And now my job as a luthier would be like, what does this person need to sound good?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's fascinating to find out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Have you ever had someone order a guitar where you hadn't heard them play and they asked for something and then it didn't go the way you were expecting it?
Well, fortunately not, at least not that I know of. It might
Mm-hmm.
have happened with guitars that were ordered through dealers,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know about it for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
With the people that worked with me directly, everything has worked out fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But sometimes I experience that people think they know exactly what they need, and then I hear them play, and it's totally not what they need.
Yeah.
I mean, a good example is Adirondack tops.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think most people want an Adirondack top. At least not the kind of Adirondack tops that I have in my hands so far.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that most people play, well, at least most fingerstyle players play with a very light right hand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I don't think that an Adirondack top is the right choice for those people.
Hmm. You don't think you can shape that top to get the response you need? The material is limited in that way?
No, I think you can within a certain amount, but why start with something that is not the right starting point
Mm-hmm.
if
Mm-hmm.
I know that there are much better options?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But also, so I work mainly with Swiss moon spruce, and it has only one reason. The
Mm-hmm.
retailer is very close to me, so I drive there 4 hours and I'm in the Swiss Alps and
Mm-hmm.
I can hand pick my tops there. And I think that the individual um, tops change so much within one species.
Mm-hmm.
You can have two tops cut from the same tree that vary a lot, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just important to have them in my hand. But I can find tops there that are as light as red cedar, and I can find tops there that are as heavy as Adirondack spruce, for example,
Mm-hmm.
like heavy examples of Adirondack spruce.
Mm-hmm.
So my in my wood stock, I don't only have spruce with a certain density and certain characteristics. I have Swiss moon spruce tops that have a wide variety of characteristics to
Mm-hmm.
be able to pick out the right top for the right player.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So, what's the ideal sort of scenario for you when making a guitar? Is this working directly with a musician? Is this building a guitar just because you want to make it? What's the ideal space for Max Spohn to be making guitars in?
Well, they're both ideal. I love building guitars for specific people, and it does not. need to be a professional player or something. It,
Mm-hmm.
if someone is enthusiastic about guitars and loves to play guitars, I'm happy to listen to them and try to figure out what the perfect instrument for that person is.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes I also enjoy just to work whatever I want to work on. So I don't think that one or the other is the perfect scenario. I think it's perfect if they're balanced out, that I can do both.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hmm. Okay. All right.
And also, when I do changes on my guitars, I've done some because the player asked for a change, or if I think I need to change something according to get the needs for the player right,
Mm-hmm.
or I start at the drawing board because I think I want to change something on my guitars or build something completely different
Mm-hmm.
and no one has asked for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
Right. Well, it
so the
sounds like you're
guitars you get,
pretty. Oh, carry on.
the guitars you get on tour from me are often guitars where I want to change something or want to try out something new or something like revisit something I haven't done in a while.
Mm-hmm.
Like the last guitar you had on tour with me with the cherry back and sides.
Mm-hmm.
The last guitar I made with cherry back and sides has been my very first guitar that I made.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I thought it was time to work with that wood again.
Yeah. It's a wonderful sounding guitar.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. 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 Great. Well, Max, it sounds like you got it. You're pretty satisfied. You're pretty happy with where you're at right now. So good for you.
I am.
Yeah. Max, I always save the sort of last question for the guest. And is there a topic today that you were hoping that we would discuss that maybe we haven't covered so far today?
I don't think so. I mean, we haven't talked about art and design a lot, but
Well, is that
I
important?
think, well, is it for you?
Well, it is. It is for me, yeah. And so, is it for you?
It is.
Great. Tell me why.
So, yeah, well,
Justify it.
you mean if it's important in general, or
Doesn't matter. Tell me why we should care from your perspective.
well, I
Why do
think
you bother to make your life more complicated than putting a couple of simple lines in a circle around here? Sound important.
I think it like art and design has to work with emotions,
Mm-hmm.
and I like to make it more complicated for myself to yeah to help the player experience something new and see something they haven't seen before, which might help them to get another view on what they could do with the guitar. And yeah, get some emotions going inside the people.
Mm-hmm. So how do you provoke those emotions through your work?
Mm, I think with I work a lot with balance and non-balance designs and like having having something that I don't know how to say it in English right now, but yeah, get some kind of complexity going
Mm-hmm.
within a design,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, play with that and try to evoke emotions with that. Like sometimes a line or a segment tends to look like it's falling over or getting outside of the rectangular elements that I work with.
Mm-hmm. As a guitar builder and a player, you have a sense for when something's working right. That's why so many of the world's best trust D'Addario. Unmatched tone, perfect intonation, and strings made to the tightest tolerances in the industry. That reputation is no accident. It's the result of 400 years of being obsessed with quality and innovation. D'Addario, when you know, you know. Mm-hmm.
And yeah,
Okay.
I like to work with different colors and um, to to push one color from a wood in a certain direction with pair it with something either that goes in the same type of color or something completely different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I mean, this is clearly one of the things that people are drawn to about your guitars that makes them identifiable. You know, is it is it art? Is it branding? Is your sort of lack of a rosette a Nike swoosh or an Adidas sort of three lines? You know,
Well,
why do we call this art and design? I mean, I guess art and design are those logos and icons as well. You know, so
well,
what
our
differentiates
guitar's
what you're
art.
doing from an icon to an art piece?
Our guitar is art for you.
They can be, but they're not. They're certainly mostly not.
So I don't see my guitars as art, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest. Um, well, in because I think yes, guitars uh evoke emotions, which I think is important for art.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they do it when someone plays them mostly.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to help the player to find something new, but I don't see the guitar itself as art.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you see any guitars as art?
Yes, I think some, but very few.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So you wanted to talk about art and design. What what is it you want to say about it?
Well, I think it's something important, art and design to help people find a new voice and find make life easier for them in many ways. And that's what I try to do with my guitars for the player.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's about
Mm-hmm.
it.
You know, your guitars are uh, unusual in their proportions, unusual in their lines, unusual in their material choice, unusual in the color choices with your guitars. And so, for somebody to want to invest in your guitar, that person has to be comfortable with separating themselves from the tribe or seeing it as a tool to help themselves join a new tribe or stay with the tribe they have. But that tribe is a nonconformist tribe. That tribe is not the normal group. It's not the masses. It's a niche for sure. and they have to be trying to stand out because your guitar will make them stand out. For somebody who doesn't want to be noticed, they should not be caught playing a Max Spohn guitar. They will be noticed, right?
Yeah.
And so there is a statement being made here. There is a provocation that is happening with this. So one of the things that I do to use art and the guitar is in the context of the Boutique Guitar Showcase. When curating a show, every year I ask a few guitar makers to make art installation pieces that show the guitar as an icon of contemporary culture that has exceeded the bounds of its utility. And this is where we get into this art and design conversation here, because if it exceeds the bounds of its utility, it's more than just a useful instrument. And if it were just a useful instrument, then it wouldn't really need any decoration really at all. There are things that are decorative on a guitar that are also utilitarian, like the binding of a guitar is meant to, make it more complicated or more durable, so that spruce top or cedar top doesn't get hit from an angle and split on you. So you put a harder binding on the edge there. It has a utility that we also choose to then make more beautiful. But in general, there is a function to it. And so
I mean, the rosette.
I show it as icon. 1 second. I show it as icon as beyond its utility, but I also use it as provocation. I use those pieces to confront people and stop them in the tracks. When you're in a room with 100,000 people and there's lots of things vying for your attention, we need to get their attention. And so we use these pieces to get the attention, but not just to get their attention in a vulgar sort of way, but in a way that makes them have to consider, what is a guitar? Is that a guitar? What is that? Why is that guitar like that? And that opens their mind for what they're about to experience when they enter the Boutique Guitar Showcase. And so the visual cues that we give are very important. We're biologically evolved to identify certain cues as safe, as dangerous, as inviting, as, stay away from that, all of these things, we've learned and evolved to be able to identify for our own safety and for the safety of those around us. And so, but to play a Max Spohn guitar and hope to conform is not a reasonable thing to do. And therefore, playing a Max Spohn guitar is dangerous for somebody who doesn't want to stand out.
Yes.
And so, do you see yourself as a provocateur?
No, not at all.
But do you see your work as provocative?
No.
Okay.
But it is within all the Martin D18s. It definitely stands out, and it's...
Okay. In what environment does your guitar not stand out?
I think many bands right now where people play headless guitars and all vibrant colors, I don't think my guitars would stand out a lot there.
Amongst a bunch of
But I know my
electric
guitars
guitars,
stand out.
your brightly colored acoustic guitar, with the white moon spruce on the top and on the headstock, with a pink splash of color or a teal splash of color, would definitely stand out in a room full of headless electric guitars still, and so, Max, I think you have made something provocative, and the point is, do you know that you've made something provocative?
Yes, but not as much as I think I probably should.
Know thyself. Yeah. Then there's this, we send messages out through our choices of clothing, how we do our hair, the environment we show, what we allow to be seen in a camera shop behind us when we're, doing something like this. There's messages there, that we're sending out. And your guitar is definitely a message. All guitars are. They're iconic statements at this stage. And so when we talk about art and design, the guitar can be an artistic statement in itself. It can be an artistic object within a statement of artistic objects. So we do this segment on the Boutique Guitar Showcase website called "In the Wild: Boutique Guitars Caught on Camera."
Yeah.
And there was one recently of John Sully's guitars, the Sully, John Sullivan, and because the Sully guitars were used in a cosmetics commercial, the Avon commercial. And it was a female rock band, four female musicians rocking out with purple sparkle instruments, that fit the idea of a cosmetic brand to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But it tells us something that this cosmetic brand is not your grandma's cosmetic brand, right? It's meant, there's a statement being made. So yeah, we have colors, and your grandma could wear this, and your mom can wear this, and you can wear this. But to be clear, we are an old cosmetic company, but we're not an old cosmetic company, right? Yeah. We're relevant, we're edgy, we're nonconformist. All of those statements are being made in that cosmetic commercial, and partly are being made by the presence of guitars, and which guitars. And so, are they the art themselves? Are they a part of the art? Yes.
They're a part, but not on themselves. At least
Not
for
always.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but you definitely are pushing that. So, all right, it is a designed object. Are you going to argue that it's not a design object?
No.
That's not tenable. Good. So it is a designed object, and it has been designed to accomplish certain things, right? And
Yes.
so, the art world often rejects guitars as art. I'm actually working right now on releasing a book on some of the most remarkable guitars in my history, and there's some guitars in there that really blur that line. I'll be interested to see if any art galleries see them as art or not. But on the design side of things, then this design involves function and intention in a different kind of way.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I would say I see myself as someone that makes tools. Tools for musicians, tools that have to inspire, but still tools.
Right. So how do we differentiate your guitar from a purple sparkle hammer? Why bother decorating the hammer?
Well, I think the difference is in, does a hammer has to inspire someone?
Well, if you're trying to
I
sell
don't
it, it
think
does.
so.
If you're looking at a wall of hammers, you got to sell one.
But I try with my guitars to inspire people, to find a new voice, and I don't think you have to do that with a hammer. A hammer just has to work. And of course, a hammer could also be pretty while still doing the job. And there are
Yeah.
definitely hammers out there that do that more than others. But in the end, I think it's about yeah, do they have to inspire someone or not? And
I'm thinking about a quote from Harold Egerton that basically says nobody wants a drill. They want a hole. And your argument is dangerously in line with the nobody gives a damn about your guitar. They want to play music. And so if it's just a tool, then why bother make it pretty?
well, maybe it's just a tool with, yeah, I mean, in the end, you're right, but still, I think there's a lot about inspirational side of musical instruments, um, that
What do you
you
mean by
don't have.
inspiration?
Well, I think a musical instrument is something very personal. You have to feel very comfortable with the instrument, um, to play music, and especially to find new music on it that you haven't played before, you haven't heard before. And yeah, maybe you can also use a hammer to uh, get a nail into the wall in a different way, but I don't think that's what they are meant for. But a musical instrument is something you want to help people find new music. So that's what I mean with inspirational.
So why do the aesthetics matter then? If it's about making new music, do you think that your inlay and your, I hesitate to call it rosette, your object located adjacent to the sound port, you
Yeah,
know, so why bother making them beautiful? It takes you a lot more time, and it drives up the price of your guitar, for sure, because it takes more time,
yeah.
right? So why bother if it's about inspiring to make music? How does it you choosing for it to be pink or blue or gold or green or have leaves in it or gold sparkle or whatever it happens to be, you know, just why bother?
Because I think that different colors, a different orientation of the lines I play with, um, they can evoke emotions in people, and that might help them to be inspired to try something new, something they have not done with other instruments. And I think if you're emotionally connected with your guitar, it's a good thing. It helps you find something new on them. So that's why I bother with the extra time.
You know, so a lot of the design work, and honestly, I hesitate to call it design work, that I see with a lot of acoustic guitars, particularly these days, really is kind of, I think Raymond Loewy referred to it as decalmania. You know, there was a period in industrial design in where they just started pinstriping fucking everything. You know, pinstripes and chrome and
Yeah.
everything got decals on it. You know, got patterns on it, and there's people who love that stuff. And when it's done well, it's done really great. You know, I think I saw a video recently on, is it Porsche or is it Ferrari? There's still like three, oh no, it's the BMW motorcycles, I think. There's like three old ladies who still like hand paint the pinstripe on those like fuel tanks or something on those BMW motorcycles. Maybe I've got the wrong car. Someone's going to correct me on this. But the point is, there can be something really valuable to that makes us feel a particular way. And it's not that we can always give voice to it, but if we decorate without intent, we're just making things pretty. And I think pretty and beauty has an object. I don't know, pretty sounds condescending somehow next to beauty. I don't know why. But let's say we're trying to make it beautiful.
Yes.
I think the truth of the matter for the most part is we're trying to stand out in the same way that, you pay attention to your hair and the clothes you wear, everything else. So you are trying to stand out from someone else. And, when we're selling a product, and let's face it, this is a product, you produce it and you hope to exchange someone's hard-earned money for your hard-earned work, right? And
Yeah.
that's the way it happens. You don't hunt and you don't grow vegetables in your garden to feed yourself. You didn't build your house, you didn't cut down the trees and do all that work.
You exchange one set of value for for this story we call money, and we trade the money to buy what you need. And in to do so, you create a product, and this product has to be able to be differentiated from other people's products. And sometimes it's just that simple. You know, I say it so often, people are probably getting sick of it, but Raymond Loewy said 2 products equal quality, equal in function, equal in price, and let's choose the better looking one.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of high performing guitars out there right now. And how do you decide one over the other? Well, we choose the better looking one. We choose the one that we connect with.
Yeah.
In that way. And it doesn't need to be any more complicated than that. that it's okay to have a Mark, to have a Nike swoosh, to have an Adidas lines, you know, and those 3 lines, we're all picturing them right now. Unless you're German and say you're fixated on the fact that I said it wrong. And we say Adidas, but it's Adidas. How do you say this brand? Yeah, there we go.
Adidas in German. Yeah.
Yeah. And since it's a German company, you guys get to be right. And so, anyways, you know, it's an identifying mark. And then you choose amongst all of the high quality products, which one you like the look of better. And it can be that simple. And so, and now we're in the design side of things. If you do it with intent and if you do it consistently and you set parameters to what that is so that it can be recognized as that person's work as opposed to some random thing, you know, because we're talking about recognizable and identifiable has to have some sort of order to it. You know, if it's too random, it's chaos, more or less, right? And so in order for someone to look at a guitar and identify that as a Spohn guitar, they have to look at multiple things and say, oh, those all have this in common, and therefore that's a Spohn guitar. And that's design, from my perspective.
I think so too. The question is, do my guitars still work without any inlay work? And that's what I tried with a couple of guitars recently, where I completely left all the inlay work out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they still work as a Spohn guitar, and they are still, you can still identify them as a Spohn guitar.
Yeah, because your
Because
geometry, your
I think
lines.
so too, yeah.
Yeah, sure. I would agree. Your proportions are identifiable in that way.
Yeah.
And so, you know, good design.
Thank you.
Well done. So, was that the kind of art and design talk you were hoping to have?
Yeah, sure.
Good. You know, sometimes we have to wrestle it out, and we have to fight it out and see at the end, does it still stand? Did we kill the idea or the concept, or does it remain after the scrutiny, after the wrestling? Is it still standing there? You know, and and that's how we know. That's the scientific process, right? You make a theory and then you try and prove it wrong. And if you can't prove it wrong, well, it must be true. Right?
Yeah.
Max, I certainly see an intentional design in your work. I see an educated designer in your work. It's clear you're not just feeling it out. You know, it's well considered, and good design is well considered.
Thank you.
And so I think that if I were to try and put on a chart the elements of a guitar and rank, and one of those elements were design, that you would score high on the design side of things. And it is one of the things that helps your guitars be identified out of the thousands and thousands of acoustic guitars being made every day, probably. You know, and so, yeah, well done. Thank you for making inspiring guitars.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate them very much. Max, thank you for being a guest on Life with Strings Attached. I appreciate you
taking the time out of your busy build schedule to sit in
You've
front
been
of a camera
listening
and
to
talk
Life
with me
with Strings Attached.
and
Yeah,
share
thank
it
you
with
for
our
having
Today's
me.
audience.
conversation meant something to you.
Yeah.
Consider passing it
So
on.
I look forward to the next
These
time
stories find
that
their
we
place
meet,
to the people who share
and the
them.
next Spohn guitar that I
New
have a chance
episode
to
comes
play.
out every Friday,
Yeah.
right here,
And,
wherever you're
But
listening.
we'll say goodbye for now.
I'm Jamie Gale.
Yeah,
And
it's
thanks for
always
listening
always
to
a
Life with
pleasure
Strings
talking
Attached.
to you.
Great. Thanks, Max. You too. Ciao.
Bye.